All right. So, hello and welcome to The Woman It May Concern, the podcast, where we lean into quiet power of reflection by creating a space for women to write to the version of themselves that need to hear the truth. I am Jasmine Bibb, the host of this space, the founder of the Overachiever Mom Collective, and someone who truly believes that every single woman has a letter worth listening to. This podcast started with one letter, mine. Since then, it's grown into something more, a space where women read their reflections out loud and maybe find something unexpected in the process. Today, I have joining me Dr. Octavia Reed. The letter that she has for you guys today, I truly believe will touch many of you in all the right places. So, whether you're walking, folding laundry, or hiding in the bathroom for 5 minutes apiece, I hope this letter gives you something to hold on to. So, Octavia, I am so grateful to have you for episode 2 of To the Woman It May Concern. But before we talk a little bit to Octavia, I want to share her bio with you guys, as Octavia is a phenomenal woman. One thing to know about the bio of the guests that will be on this podcast is the thought is this podcast is about connection. This podcast is about the human aspect of the things that we as women go through. And so typically when you hear someone's bio, it's basically our resume in summary form. And that's all well and fine because we have all achieved so much. But I think there's this piece that sometimes is so the heart piece of connecting with someone when you understand who they are and what they're about first as a person. I think that matters so much. So that will be the theme that you will hear on this podcast when I have a guest and I read their bio. So with that being said, I'll share Octavia's bio with you guys. Dr. Octavia Reed is an African American woman rooted in resilience, love, and divine purpose. Born and raised in East Cleveland, she's the rose that grew from concrete, molded by both adversity and grace. Every chapter of her life has been infused with purpose, perseverance, and a deep commitment to truth and transformation. She is a mother, a daughter, sister, friend, and prayer partner, roles she carries with reverence and joy. She lives by the spirit of loyalty and walks boldly in the calling of a woman of God, speaking truth to power, even when it's not popular. She nurtures relationships with unwavering love and protects her community with fervor and faith. Professionally, she's an exceptional educator and an advocate, deeply passionate about shaping futures and creating spaces where children and families feel seen, heard, and empowered. She brings empathy, intelligence, and vision to every space she enters, driven by a genuine love for people and a belief that transformation is possible through collective healing, education, and truth. Her story is a testament to resilience, grace, and divine alignment. She is Dr. Octavia Reed, grounded in faith, family, and freedom, and is unwavering in her commitment to building bridges, elevating voices, and nurturing a world where every soul is honored. Her motto, I am the move of God. Welcome, Octavia.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you for having
welcome.
me.
No problem. No problem at all. So I'm thrilled to have you. I'm so excited for today's episode and today's conversation. But before we get into the good stuff and the reason that we're here, I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
My first question being, if your life was a soundtrack, what would song number 1 be? And tell me why.
So I think song number 1 would be Get God by Corn Hawthorne. I truly am in a space right now of counting my blessings and remembering the things and all the haters are doing and the plots and the plans that my enemies have had. but always remindful that I am covered in the blood and that on this journey, he has always allowed me to see his hand, even when I didn't obey, when I didn't agree, and I wanted to do my own thing. He nudged me lightly to let me know, I'm still here and I have your back.
I like that. That's a good song. Look at God. Look at God.
That's my
He's
song.
making a way. Yeah, yeah. That's a
It
good
gets me
one.
through.
It
Yes.
does. Especially if you think about it first thing in the morning or just when you're having a hard moment, you can always reflect on how good he truly is to us.
Right. Hmm.
All right. So before we get into your letter, last question. What made you decide that you wanted to be a guest on the podcast?
Well, I have been following the blog and reading the letters because the overachieving mom resonates with me well
Mhm.
with Jordan, my son. And some may say overachieving, making sure that there are avenues and opportunities and experiences that I never had that he has. And being proud enough to say that he realizes that and takes full advantage of them. So the sacrifices are well worth it. And of course, you're my soror. I wanted to support. So I would read the letters. The idea that to the woman it may concern, because sometimes I could read a letter and say, okay, this really doesn't hit me right now. And maybe
Mhm.
go back and read it 2 weeks later and oh yeah, that's something right now that I'm facing in my life. But just the idea that we all have a letter, we all have a story, and that you may help someone else along their journey. And for me, this was release for years of things in my career. And I guess the obstacles that sort of outshine sometimes the good things that have happened. This was a way for me to release it, to move forward in my journey, to turn the page. Yeah, this is the page turner.
I like that, the page turner. That's like what's next on the other side of this, but I got to turn the page before I'm able to really
Right.
know what that is. And sometimes turning the page means turning it one way and not back the other way.
Release. Let it go.
Exactly.
Let it go.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so with that being said, Octavia, whenever you are ready, one, again, thank you so much for your vulnerability and your willingness to share and be a guest and have this conversation and the courage to turn the page. So, whenever you're ready, the floor is all yours. Hmm.
In writing my letter, it was very reflective and it put me in a very vulnerable space. A space where initially I almost said, okay, no, I don't want to do this. But you need closure. And like I said, if this can help someone else, then it's worth it. So I'll say when I started my career in education, my principal wrote on my evaluation, she cares too much about kids. And that was my weakness that I needed to work on. At that time, I was young and naive, and I didn't understand how you could care too much about kids. Like, we're educators. This is what we do. This is why I'm here. And so that statement has never gone away because I feel like not only is it a weakness, but it is also my strength. And it probably has guided me along the journey. I didn't understand the depth of caring too much at that time and what I was up against, the systemic part of education and the billions of dollars in failure. And I had no clue. So I really sort of read what she wrote and just kind of brushed it off as she don't know what she's talking about. But later it has come back. And probably if I seen her today, I would say, you were absolutely correct.
Mm.
But I wish there was more follow through with it, or you would have explained to me
Mm.
what you truly meant by that so that when I experience things, I would have been probably better prepared. I guess that's one of my first harsh realities of education is that not everyone in the space is there for kids. Whatever it is, your summers off, your vacations, the paycheck, it's a place where I can climb the ladder and get more titles behind my name and fill my pockets. That was a harsh reality for me, that everyone in the room was not on the same page or that people feel like it is a game to be played when you are dealing with the lives of children. And so that was very disheartening for me. Early in my career, I worked in spaces. So I will say I have been honored to work in rural, suburban, urban school districts, charter schools, and it has given me a broad lens of education and what happens in many different circles. And I'll say in the charter realm, I worked in a school where I felt there was cruelty to kids. And so I guess that's what they call a whistleblower, right? I
Mm.
State Department, and the lady answered the phone. She, introduced herself. I told her who I was, and she said, "His grace is sufficient. You are the light, and you will always be sent to a dark place." And I just cried, like tears. And she said, "Take a deep breath, Dr. Reed. How may I help you?"
Mm.
That conversation with her, the way this person I had never met before in my life or spoken with spoke over my life, it has sort of been the passport for me. And when I go in situations and they are dark, I think about that and the burden of being the light and having teachers in various buildings come to me and say, "I prayed for you. You're the answer to my prayer." And I would chuckle to myself and say, "Yeah, that's why I'm here. He sent the light. I'm the answer to your prayer." And sometimes, that crown is not light to carry.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that I have not worked with some remarkable educators and teachers who truly understand the gravity of the work that they do and their calling. I have had amazing experiences and accolades and successes along this journey. But there have been some very ugly spaces that I have experienced along the way also. I will say that a friend of mine sent me this quote, and I wrote it down to make sure She said, "The area where you are attacked the most and the hardest is usually the area where your gifts lie. It is your ministry and calling. It is where you thrive effortlessly, but also where you suffer greatly due to the anointing on your life and the burden of the call. But clarity comes from obedience." I will say on the journey that I have felt like there is something else you're supposed to be doing. There have been several nudges concerning that area of my life, but I continue to dig my heels in and want to fit in a space that was not created for me. Not to say that in the space you won't make impact and that you have not changed lives. And I have wonderful stories. Like my son hates to go to dinner with me because he says some kid is always coming up to you saying how you changed their life. And so that puts meaning to your work, right? And so I do now reflect on the positives more than the negatives. A girlfriend said, "I'm sure as good as you are at that job, you would have never thought that they would eliminate you." I reflected over that for months, trying to figure out, did I treat people bad? Did I do something wrong? And although after you leave those spaces, you hear, "Oh, that idea you had, we're implementing that across the district." Or, that success that you had over there, yeah, we're using that practice and strategy across the district. And so that there was impact, that you made a difference. And sometimes people don't like it because it comes from a woman or even a woman of color. I've had a superintendent say to me, "If you were a white woman, there's nothing I can do about that."
Right.
People don't like that the knowledge comes from a woman of color. I felt her statement was very real. I felt it. I understood exactly what she was saying. We have people in top level positions in education who student achievement and excellence is not the goal. I've
Mm.
heard people say that right out of their mouths to principals. That's not the goal. And so it makes you wonder, then what is the goal? Why are we here? If you're not willing to do the work, if you're not willing to change your practice. I am the first to admit when there's a mistake. If I feel like something is not right for kids, I remember a parent saying to me once, "Someone must have threatened your job." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Because this thing you're doing instructionally, this doesn't feel right for kids. And so that's not something I would ever think you would do."
Wow.
And at that time, I was trying to follow, right, the road. Just, okay, this is what they want to happen, and I'm going to do it. And I remember, like, after a couple weeks, I told my assistant principal, "I want you to change the entire master schedule of this middle school because this is not working for me. And this is not working for the kids." And I knew that decision made some teachers upset. He was looking at me like, "Have you lost your ever loving mind? You know how long it takes to create this master schedule?" And I said, "Yeah, but this isn't right for kids and it needs to change." So being able to be flexible enough to say, "That's not right. I was wrong. And we need to fix this." And so I've always marveled at the people in leadership who just refuse, failure after failure, year after year, and you just refuse to change course. You refuse to serve the people that are sitting in those classrooms. In my heart, I believe that teachers are the most important piece to this puzzle we call school. I know that I can have grand ideas and vision, but if they don't implement it, it does not happen. I know that they are the people who are on the ground. They are in those classrooms. They are the people that motivate and
Hmm.
inspire kids to do the work. They are truly the game changers. And you have to wonder, as a principal, your job to make sure that you are motivating and inspiring them and giving them the space to be creative and be the best they can be every day. But I also know that kids are my casualties of war.
Mm. Mm.
When you don't agree or you refuse to do, and when people do things just because of you, the person, the gift is not mine to give. I'm just the vessel. And it took me a long time to accept that I was the vessel. And that's why if someone rings my phone about something with a kid or a parent needs advice of how to advocate and navigate the system, I freely give because the gift isn't mine. And I feel like it's what he's given me to enhance the kingdom. And so I'm trying to use it in that manner. Yeah, yeah. Um, I love what I do. Um, it's funny today, Asura sent me a message because I hadn't shared with anyone that I was doing the podcast. And she sent me a message today that said, "People are often jealous of the way people attract and love you."
Mm.
And I laughed about that because I was like, wow, how befitting for today
Hmm.
as I get ready to share my story, my letter. I hope that a young leader who has a calling on their life will follow the calling, even when it's not popular. Because oftentimes, if you're doing what's best for kids, it is not. Look for your tribe. Inside the walls of schools are true educators, teacher leaders who really have it in their heart to do what's best for kids. And sometimes they just need the courage of a leader to
Mm.
stand before them so that they can do that. I look at the people in my field, the climbers, as they call them, how many titles can you have behind your name? And I really don't care about how far you climb or how much money you make, but can you along the way do something impactful for kids, right? Because that's why we're there, to serve the families. And you have people who get so upset at this. I'm not a servant. Yeah, we're servants. You were put in a place of service, and it brings my heart joy. I have seen kids do remarkable things and go beyond the limits of the adults in front of them, right? The limits that adults place on them. And so that's kind of my story. I feel like I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of education. And when you are the light, I realize that it shines and it shines bright. And I have tried to dim it at times to fit in spaces. And then, it's causing my blood pressure to rise.
Mm-hmm.
And me not being able to sleep at night, and the tears that I have shed over other people's children, especially when the powers above me have restricted me from doing what it is that I know to do for them. I had a superintendent say once, "You will not outshine the other principals."
Mm.
At that time, I need to pay my bills and I need to live. But in my mind, I'm thinking, then why did you hire me? But I cried a lot when I was in that space because it hurt me not to be able to help children and to see kids not reading and knowing that I have strategies and the skill set to be able to help you. But I will say that in probably every building I've been in, I was able to assemble a prayer group.
Mm.
Teachers and paraprofessionals and people coming together once a week just to have prayer and speak life over each other and the lives of those children. And so, impact, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there has been impact. And my motto of I am the move of God is because I've heard two separate pastors say, you're praying and you're waiting on God to give you an answer, but have you ever thought about that you are his answer? And that helped me decide it was time to turn the page,
Mm.
and that you have allowed everybody to use this gift, but it is time to allow the Lord to use the gift and to walk in your purpose that you have been disobedient about. So I'm not saying that these knocks up against the wall and these experiences that I've had were not for a reason. I do feel like there is clarity
Mm.
in obedience, as she said in the quote, right? And that obedience, finally, Octavia has been obedient, and it is providing clarity.
Man, obedience provides clarity. I
It's
think
providing clarity.
that is such a takeaway when you think about who you're talking to, rather it be the educator, the woman who is not in education, the earlier version of yourself, the earlier version of me. It doesn't matter. That message is so applicable because if you're just obedient, if you just do what he tells you to do, he will blow your mind, right? But
Right.
for whatever reason, we don't want to.
No, no.
Wow.
And I do feel like you're having success. A colleague one time said, someone asked me to describe you. And I said, everything she touches turns to gold.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow. I realized that, pat yourself on the back
Have to.
and that you have to applaud yourself. And I'm happy that I am in a space where I can enjoy now the things that I have done in my career. And the positive is beginning to overshadow the darkness.
Mm.
But I wouldn't trade the journey, the experiences, the people that I have met, parents that I still have relationships with 20 years later, like adults, children that, I met as young people who are adults in my life calling, saying, can we have cocktails? Will you cook?
Wow.
And so I would not trade it for the world. But I am happy that I am finally in a space where I feel like I'm moving in my purpose and moving and doing what he created and designed me to do.
Okay. That's a powerful testament of your story, your letter, just your entire journey. And I think when you can We go through things and we always tell ourselves, especially in those dark moments, oh, they say everything happens for a reason, but why is this happening? And then when you can look back and say, I get it now. And all of those things needed to happen for me to get where I am right now.
Yes,
That is such a magical moment.
yes. I just had a personal experience this past weekend, and I
Mhm.
kept saying, "Yes, I know this is for the best thing, but it's not what I want to do." Okay, but I get it that this is for my good, but it's still not what I want to do. And just staying the course, but just allowing it to be said out loud, right? This is not what I want to do. This is what I would rather do. But I know that what I hear in the spirit nudging is saying, no, no, bad idea. What's a bad idea? And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I still want to do it, but I get it, you know. And just that growth and maturity to be able to get quiet enough to listen and to be still. And so I'm excited about what he has next, what he's going to do next. I'm excited about that.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, I got a question for you. When you think about all like your letter and like what you wanted to say and the prep that we did to go into formulating that, some things I'm sure were like top of mind, but some things you probably had to go back and grab. And so, what was that process like for you? How did it make you feel to have to grab some things that made you cry more often than you would have liked? Like, talk about that.
Well, like I said when we first started, I almost said, no, Jasmine, this was not a good idea. I don't want to do this. And so I will say that it was a week. Like I would write something, and I guess the reality of how much negativity there had been, and the lies, and the the backstabbing and the treachery from people, and just having to own that, Octavia, you walk in a space, you're intimidating. You know, people say that to you. I don't know if they think it makes you feel good or it's a positive, but it does not, right? Because you're not trying to intimidate anyone, but you want to be authentically, authentic, who you are,
Yeah.
right? And when you try to show up in spaces and pretend to be someone you're not, it's taxing, right? So it's freeing to be who you are, for someone to allow you to be in a space and just be who you are. I had a superintendent one time who said to me, he said, people aren't happy about the success you are having in this school. He said, but I want you to knock their socks off.
Hey, now.
He gave me freedom, like, do whatever it is you feel needs to be done for these kids, do whatever it is you need to do for your staff. So I have had people along my journey. When I first started, it made me think, when I was writing this letter, about the Black women who were leaders when I first became a principal, and how strong they were and who they were. So they weren't intimidated by little old me, but how they recognized the gift. And they would say to me, I know this is your first year, but you move like you've been doing this for 20 years. And you seemed very seasoned. And they would talk to me about things that I would encounter later, right? And I'm thankful that they were strong women and who they were as leaders. So they didn't have a problem mentoring a little person like me at that time.
Mhm.
And so writing the letter really made me reflect over experiences. It made me think about students and just everything on this journey. And there were times where I cried, because it is hurtful to try to be in a space where you're not welcomed, right? But I get it. It is easier for mediocrity to stick together than to allow excellence in the room, right?
Very, very true.
And so you learn to deal with that. Does it not make you want to fit in? It made me think about my fears and embarrassments, and even with all the positives, how those things surfaced in order to keep me from being obedient or
Yeah.
keep me from moving in a certain direction. So I will say this process was very reflective. It allowed me to feel release and to know that, yes, it is time to put it to bed and to turn the page.
I like that. Back to the page turning. That was very symbolic of this new chapter, this new
Yes.
journey, this new road that you're traveling. So when you think about the reflection, the positive, the negative, the people that, lifted you up and those who tried to do otherwise, in what you shared today during our episode, is there anything that when you said it out loud, you thought, oh my gosh, either I can't believe that happened to me, I can't believe I let someone say that to me? Like, is there any moments like that for you through this process and what you shared today where you just were like, what the heck?
I think one of the biggest things was when I heard the leader say, you do not have to care about student achievement. And I remember saying to a superintendent, like, she's not that smart, right? Like, she's not that smart. And the superintendent's response was, I like people like that.
Wow.
And so, you know, later I realized, oh, so that's why you're blackballing me now. And that's why you eliminated my job.
Hmm.
um, because I'm not someone who's not intelligent. And yes, I have vision. And so if that's, I like people like that. Yeah. So it made it all come together as far as, well, no wonder you did what you did to me or felt that way about me. And I think about when I would see her the entire time that I knew I was losing my job. She would say, every time I see you, you're smiling. You're always so happy. And like, I just could never get in a space of doom and gloom, I guess. And I never really thought like, okay, so I don't work again. Like, I'm just
Mm.
gonna go somewhere else, right? You just find a new space. I didn't understand the seriousness until someone called me and said, you're being blackballed. And I was like, why would somebody do that? Like, just let me go work somewhere else. And a friend of mine said, well, people might look at her kind of strange. Like, why would you let someone like that go? And she said that this isn't about you. This is about her own insecurities and having you in that space. And it was hurtful because here I am, the cheerleader. It's the black woman. I'm going to cheer for you. I'm going to help you if I hear anything because I want you to succeed. I need you to succeed in this space for us, right? And that reality of having other women of color tear you down. And, we hear about how we do that to one another. But to personally experience that, that was one of the things during this process where I was just like, wow. And I hope I have never done that to a woman, period, regardless of her color, regardless of her race, that I'm always trying to uplift someone, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. But they always say, you got to be careful what you do to others. It always comes back around. So there's that piece where you do good, good happens to you. You don't do good, it may not immediately you may not immediately see the results of that, but it will.
yes. And you never know how. It may not happen to you, your children,
Yeah.
your grandchildren. You don't know where it will end up in your line, right?
Yeah.
So just being conscious of that and letting that be a guide. What is your North Star? As
Yeah.
people say, right? What's guiding you? And so, yeah, I get it. Transformative. I can embrace all the adjectives now. When there was a time, I could not, right? I could not. I didn't feel that way. I didn't understand what some people saw. But I realized today that people saw things when I walked in the room that I hadn't even realized myself.
Mm-hmm.
right?
So, with that being said, when you think about, you said, Jasmine, I almost said, never mind. What version of Octavia within this journey that you've been on would have actually said, you know what, never mind. I'm busy. I've got to do XYZ. My son needs me. What version of Octavia would not have allowed her to sit down and have this conversation with me? And why?
I will say it has not been that long ago, right? So, like, if you would have tapped me on the shoulder 3 years ago, I
Mhm.
probably would have said, "Oh no, no, we're not going to do that." And it is the embarrassment of some of the story, right? For me, where someone else may not even see that, but there's um, the fear because it really made me look in the mirror, right? And I have a dear friend who always says, "I never realized you were so reflective."
Hmm.
Right? Because she would only see me at work, right? And to her, it's that piece of the gift, right? It seems effortlessly. Like you can ask me a question, I can answer you, I can move effortlessly through this because I'm operating in the gift.
Hmm.
But I am very reflective over the decisions I make because I took it very serious about you have the lives of children in your hands. Like this is a lot of power. And so you want to do the right thing. So yeah, if you would have, if 3 years ago, I would have never stepped up to the plate. No, no, I would not have been in that space. And so I will say, that once again you get put in the okay, you still not listening, okay, so now I'm gonna let you go over here, and
Yeah.
so you're gonna have your little impact, and here comes something to really knock you upside your head again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the final draw for me to say, okay, that's it. I don't belong in this space, and I'm happy today to say that in the fall of 2026, I will be opening an early childhood academy for grades K to 3, a private school.
Mm-hmm.
Cornerstone Early Childhood Academy will be opening. I am a founder and CEO. This is something that I probably have said for the last 25 years. And so it is very real when God places something in your heart. It never goes away. And I
That is
feel like
beautiful.
obedience, right, brings clarity and how effortlessly this process was to reaffirm for me that you are finally walking in what I created you to do.
And when you do that, everything else just organically unfolds because you're
Yes.
finally doing what was asked of you from the very beginning.
Yes.
Congratulations. That
Thank
is a
you.
huge deal because when you think about, I think not being in the education space, my best friend is in the education space. And so she shares your same sentiments. She's in it because she's an educator and she cares about children and education and what that means and the minds that you have to shape. And I think as a parent, you think surely wherever you send your kid, right? Everybody cares about education and shaping their minds and making sure that they read and they get ahead. And to know that education for some is simply a business, no different than a corporate
Yes.
position, the fact that you're shedding light on that, first of all, and then second of all, taking the steps to change that narrative to give parents a safe, reliable, trustworthy, credible space for them to send their children and know that you want for them what they want for them.
Yes.
That's a huge deal. Everybody just wants their children to be treated by others the way that they would treat them if they could be around them.
Yes. And I think that that's a big thing as a parent now, right? My child goes to an independent school, right? And I don't have anything against public education. I'm probably truly at my heart a person who believes in choice because one size doesn't fit all, right? And so you have to find the space that is best for your child. And for me, having a Black male child, it was a space that would allow him to be himself and that he would not have to change who he was, and that also celebrated his knowledge and allowed him to grow and stretch. And so I found that space for him. But I tell parents all the time, because I get calls about how to navigate this and how to, what types of questions to ask. And, and I have a circle of educators, women who I will say who have fought this fight, phenomenal people who understand what it's like when you are the light in a space. And I'll call one of them in a minute if I don't have the answers, or if I feel like they may have a resource that someone needs to help their child. That's just who I am, right? So, yes, Cornerstone is in its infancy, and I'm looking forward to this journey and the challenges that have come along with it. I feel like I'm learning something, and that is something that has not happened in a very, very long time. And so I'm excited about that, right? A new life. I got a new life.
You got a new life.
Yeah. And so, and just making sure that my son sees that, yes, you can have a dream and it can manifest and it can come true. And so you say all these things. It made me think about when I first received my doctorate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to name a school because it's not anywhere. I was at Giddings Elementary over on 71st and Cedar. And I was in school, and I was doing my homework. And I had always said, I wanted to get my doctorate. I wanted to get my doctorate. One day I said, okay, you come in here every day and you tell these kids that they could do whatever they want to do. And if you put your mind to it, you can have whatever you want to have. And I said, but you have some dreams of your own that,
Mm.
you need to go after. And so it was that. So you can't keep saying that to them if you don't believe it yourself. Right. And so the kids watched me, like I would be doing my homework in the atrium of the school. I'm sitting in the atrium. And so it became a thing in the building. The kids would say, did you do your homework? Yes. Did you do yours?
Oh,
Like, so we check them in. Did you do your homework? Because I did mine. Yeah, you did your homework. They would see me reading. You're reading. Like, so I'm modeling, right, in this
exactly.
sense of this is what it looks like to truly be a student. And yes,
Mm.
you see me as the leader of this building, but I'm the student. And when I defended my dissertation, the first call I received was from a lady in the school and all these kids in the background, like, did you pass? Did you pass? And I was like, yes, I passed. Right. And so I feel like it has come full circle with me going after this with my own child
Yeah.
of saying, if you dream it, you can have it. If God allows you to see it, that means it's obtainable for you. If he allows you to experience it, that means you can have it. And I said, you can't keep telling him that when you still have this dream.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I'm just trying to walk in my truth, today and speak truth to power. And when somebody rings my phone, I'm going to continue to mentor. I'm going to continue to advocate because, like I said, I'm just the vessel. But I am thankful for the gift.
I love that. And I feel the true gratitude. That was a pretty cool story when you think about you never know how a kid who maybe you don't know their background. So to see that and to see the level of education you were aspiring for at that time, I'm sure some kids remember that moment to this day, and some may have gone on to get their own doctorate or simply have gone to the next level of education for the first time in their family or just in general. So, those are the things that people remember the back and forth of did you do your homework? I think that is just super cool because you just never know. You just never know a kid's story to your point of why education is so important.
Yes.
So, question for you as we start to round out our episode. If there were a PS to this letter, what would that PS be?
That's a good question. Girl, why did it take you so long?
Hmm, I like it. I like it a lot because I think a lot of women, once we get in the groove of we're going to become whatever has inspired us to step into whatever we should have been doing, you do reflect back and you say, this is all I had to do. And why
Yeah,
the heck did it take me so long to get here?
so long to get here.
Wow.
Yes.
I like it. Anything in closing when you think about the woman that is listening to this and the short story you shared and your PS, and if you could give them one takeaway that takes them or connects the dots or helps them become motivated to turn the page, what's that thing, Octavia?
Do it anyway. You hear people say that, right? Do it anyway. Do it scared. Do it afraid. Do it. Do it. Do it with no money. Do it anyway. Because there's peace on the other side.
Mm,
Um, I will say that there's peace on the other side. So just do it anyway. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't worry about what people think. Your family, friends. As they say, God didn't give the vision to them; He gave it to you. It's a personal conversation. He didn't have to have an audience. You don't have to have everybody clapping and cheering. Cheer yourself on, but do it anyway.
I'm learning that. I'm learning that if I do it anyway, spread the seeds, whatever the things
Right.
are, hence this podcast, something will come from it. It will
That's
never be
right.
in vain if you just do it anyway.
Yes. Yes.
I like it.
So I
Well,
thank you for
thank you.
motivating me.
You got it. I'm so excited to continue to watch your journey as you continue to move in obedience. Thank you so, so very much for your vulnerability, your transparency, your knowledge, your wisdom, the conversation, your openness. That is the goal of this platform and what I'm trying to do for women. And I think that your story and your approach to this episode really exemplifies and really just confirms for me that I should keep going and
Yes.
doing it anyway, you know? So, with that being said, as I close out today's episode again, thank you very much, Octavia.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And for those of you who haven't yet followed to The Woman That May Concern the podcast, you can access it on Substack or you can access it on YouTube. Subscribe via YouTube or subscribe via Substack. Make sure you like, and then I can be followed at Over the Overachiever Mom on Instagram. And of course, as always, if you have a letter on your heart, similar to how Octavia had a letter on hers, you know where to find me. My email is linked below, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.